Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am one of your hosts, JT Matthews, at JT Matthews01 on the Twitter, and I'm here with the doctor, Nicholas Manning, at DR_N Manning on Twitter as well. Doc, it is another Wednesday. We are just breezing through the week. How's it been for you?
It's been a good week. I could complain, but why? Overall, a lot of positive things, knocking stuff out, and then got to see my family, my extended family, last weekend, which was real dope. So overall good.
Yeah, where'd you go? Was it Nebraska?
Yeah, it was Omaha. Omaha.
Oh
so my grandpa was a Tuskegee Airman, and he was stationed. His final station was out in Omaha, so he's actually like all over the concourse. They have a big display, so I was able to see that for the first time. I haven't flown into Nebraska ever. I've always drove, so it was nice. It was super cool. So overall, pretty dope.
I don't know if anyone's actually flown into Nebraska. I've never heard of anyone saying they took a flight to Nebraska. That's interesting.
I've known a few people, but not enough for it to matter.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't even know they had an airport. I assumed there was one somewhere, but hey, no, there's no DIA out there.
That is true. No international Nebraska airport there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you want to jump right into some? I think we're going to go Nuggets talk first. I think must have been 2 days ago. Shams had written in an article that the Clippers plan to waive Russell Westbrook, which you mentioned last week on the pod that I had not heard, and that the Nuggets are the front runners to sign Russell Westbrook moving forward. Usually, when Shams writes something, it comes to fruition. He's a pretty well-connected guy. So I think we can start talking about this a little more seriously. And I'm wondering, given the depth, the injury to De'Ron Holmes, which was demoralizing in a lot of ways, losing Reggie, losing KCP, this feels like maybe one of the first significant additions of the offseason, and maybe the primary and only significant addition of the offseason for the Nuggets. How are you feeling about it overall?
Well, I mean, you can't, in the end, De'Ron Holmes is going to be, it's more of a long-term play than a right now play. So I'm still excited about the prospects of it. That said, that really sucked. I think he could have been a really strong contributor. But here we are. And we got to do what we got to do. Dario Saric, which I had said we're going to have Saric, we're going to have Westbrook. It's going to be a wrap, and we're going to feel pretty good about it. Really nice deal. 2 years, like 10.5. So really solid. I think when you look at a deal, he's a guy that can shoot, stretch the floor, can play next to Jokic, can play for Jokic. So I think you and I have talked about that. And I had assumed that Russ will be here. Essentially, it's a strong, cost-effective move. And right now, we wondered, what was taking so long? I'm hearing Shams report, no one's knowing that they will cut him. Really, only contenders are going to be in on Russ.
Sure.
I don't think he wants to go to a crappy team and score 30. I think he wants to try and win a ring. And so there's a limited number of teams, and I think ones that will let him be him a little bit, drive / play with intensity. There's not a ton of those. And so, this is a team that I think can be okay without the shooting. You surround him, maybe with Jamal off the ball, MPJ, Saric, those kind of guys, and let him, Strother, who's looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
2 games now is wrapped in bubble wrap. If he can shoot anywhere near what he had in the summer game or summer league, I think it's a good move. In the end, it's like if it doesn't work out, he's a headache. You're going to cut him. It's a vet min deal anyway. But right now, it looks like what's taken so long is they're waiting for him to get cut. Why give up future assets that they don't have a ton of when you can just wait? And that cost will still be super low. So, it'll be under $5 million, which is good. I've heard in NBA dollars.
I've also heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you take a little bit of risk by allowing him to hit the open market instead of trading for him. That being said, it feels like all signs are pointing to the Nuggets, signing Westbrook to a short-term deal at least. I obviously like the move. We've talked about it a little bit, but I think Westbrook is the kind of guy and facilitator specifically that you need, and ball handler that you need in that second group. I don't know that you have any lights out scorers on that group. I think Julian Strawther has the potential to be that. He's not there yet. We've seen great things in summer league, like you mentioned, and I think he's someone that's going to be pretty solidly in the rotation as things move forward. He was in the rotation last year for a period of time, but a guy like Russ will do a lot of good for a player like Strawther, who has the ability to be a primary ball handler in spurts, but you really need someone who is more effective around the rim, who's better in space, better in pick and roll, that sort of thing. So by bringing Russ in, you've got a great finisher around the rim. That's something that Reggie Jackson was not really. As a ball handler, he was a good and serviceable ball handler, but not really a good downhill driving guard. He preferred to stand on the perimeter sometimes, or if he would slash, he wasn't going up to try and finish over anyone. We know Russ has the athleticism to be able to do that. And just from an X's and O's standpoint, I think you can slot him in with that starting group. If Christian is struggling shooting the ball, or if you want to go small, and get MPJ some extra time to sit, you slide Christian over. Christian's serviceable and good defender, maybe a little bit undersized for a three, but I think you could do that for stretches.
I agree.
I want to ask you about the leadership piece of this, because I think that is something that second unit and maybe the Nuggets as a whole missed last year. Would you agree with that? And do you think that Russ, the potential signing of Westbrook, how does that change that dynamic in the locker room?
One, I think Russ respects Jokic. I don't know how he feels about Jamal Murray, but I would assume mutual respect. I think no one on this team is a blowhard. So I think Russell Wilson is a guy that values real.
Wilson.
Did I say Wilson?
Yeah.
Westbrook. Rules. I've never heard a teammate come out and talk about how difficult it was to play with Russell Westbrook. The only, there was beef after Durant left OKC and went to Golden State. No offense, I like it. And so I think especially for the second unit, when everyone's deferring, I looked at it like last year, people they weren't ready to shoot or what have you. He's not a guy that's going to be afraid to put the ball up. And I think if you can get a commitment from him to minimize, and I wouldn't say eliminate shooting a three, but minimize it, where maybe he's taken one a game, and really focusing on getting free throws, getting guys in foul trouble, crash in the middle to be able to kick out, make sure that the offense is moving, get out and run. I think, and especially for the low cost, I think I've heard a few places like you wouldn't want him teaching young guys. Really? Like Russell Westbrook works hard. Yeah. He wants to win. He's passionate. He has been to the mountaintop, right? MVP, 2 seasons of triple-double average. I mean, that's not nothing, and it's not like he's a ball hog in the sense of he didn't average a triple-double. I mean, he's averaging 10 assists, and you don't get an assist every time you pass. You assist on a shot made. So he's passing more than his shot made. So I think a lot of the Russ hate is, a lack of knowing. He's not soft to the media. So it's a little bit like Jamal. And would that locker room welcome one more of those? For sure. Yeah. I don't think he's a rah-rah like locker speech guy either. So, and I think DeAndre Jordan and him have a pretty good relationship from their time together also. And I think he's vouched for the kind of guy that he is. So I low cost, high reward. Like you said, there's not another guy on, and you've seen Strother do it for 2 summer league games last year. He really struggled before he was out for the season. So I don't have any faith that anyone outside of Jamal can handle the ball on a consistent basis other than Jokic. But even you saw last year, right? If Jamal's not 100%, or you get a really long defender, he's going to struggle. So having someone else who you can bring in, you move Jamal off ball, where I think he'd be super dangerous. If he's going to come off the screen and just shoot, save some wear and tear too for him, because he doesn't have to run the action, then come off a screen all the time. So I don't know why not. I don't think the Nuggets are going to spend $3 million on Russell Westbrook to get yesteryear him. Yeah. Right? Like they're not buying the 30-year-old Russ or 27-year-old Russ. And I think Russ understands he was coming off the bench last year. He's been a bench guy for the last 3 seasons. So I think he's had his humble pie. If he wanted to start, he'd go sign for, he'd go play in Charlotte, make $10 million and get run. So I'm all for it. And I just don't know who else you could get. Gary Trent Jr. has vocalized he doesn't want to come here. He doesn't want to play fifth fiddle, guys like that. So guys that probably would be better players. We talked about Tyus Jones, who is a really good shooter, but he's bite-sized, so it doesn't really help your ability to defend, which to me, I think ball handling and defense right now are probably more valuable than shooting. I think you can pick up shooting at the deadline, right? So I'm stoked. I'm stoked for Russ to get here. I think he'll fall in line. I think Jokic is calling some shots, and it'll be kind of interesting. Right? He's doing a little LeBron-ness. He wanted Saric. I think he's been asking for him for a little while, and he's the one that's been kind of pounding the table for us. So we'll see if Jokic understands the roster construction better than LeBron, or fill in the blank. Other guys who have tried the same stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I'm interested. I like I'm guessing that your second unit would be Westbrook, Strother, then either Peyton Watson or Vladko. I would assume Vladko probably is more your 4. That allows Peyton Watson to be more of your 3, and then Dario Saric at 5. There's some scoring there. Some improved scoring over the options you had last year. I think Saric opens that up a lot. I think Westbrook opens that up a lot. A, with his ability to facilitate, and then B, with his ability to just beat guys off the dribble. He can still do that. Even though he's not a young pup anymore. I think that unit feels a lot better. But really, the value you get from Westbrook is coming. It comes in the playoffs when Jamal Murray was harried all the way up the court, up and down in press coverage, for 3 quarters in a NBA playoff game. That's exhausting, right? And we didn't really have another option. We had Aaron Gordon bring it up on occasion, maybe for stretches, but that wasn't something that you could sustain through a whole series. And so I think that, let Russ get out there, be your primary ball handler, at least get it past half court, and then you play Jokic ball. And I think that A, saves Jamal's legs, allows him to be hopefully more efficient, have a little more gas in the tank on the defensive side of the ball too. And I think that, it may not feel as impactful immediately, but I think in the long term, once you get to the playoffs, you're going to notice the difference between this season and last season. I'll say.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. We're going to talk Rockies. We haven't talked Rockies in a actual Rockies segment in a hot minute. We kind of mentioned them
really since the season started.
Yeah, I mean, right. Since we had like not really any hope, but that youthful optimism, the season's young, maybe something special can happen with these young guys.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's not the way things are trending at the moment. However, the uh, MLB draft was just a few days ago,
Yeah, on Sunday.
and the Rockies selected one. What Condon? What's the first name?
Charlie.
Charlie Condon,
Oh, Chuck.
an outfielder. And I saw something that said he could play third base. I don't know.
Yeah, he plays third base now, can play the outfield. He's big. So essentially,
he has like 6'6", right?
Yeah, 6'6". I think he's like 215 right now.
Right.
And looks like Chris Bryant-ish. Kind of get the same stuff. Chris Bryant was a third baseman outfielder when he started in the old the old MLB. Premium power. So they grade things on a 0 to 80, or maybe it's like 20 to 80 scale. 80 being prodigious, 20 being me. Has the most power in this draft class, hit 37 home runs last year, was a Golden Spikes Award winner, so the MVP of college baseball. So Golden Spikes Award winner, big hit, 433. I don't care what league that is. If that's slow pitch softball, like you're raking, bro.
Yeah.
And so essentially, everyone wants pitching. For sure. We all want the pitching. That said, when the best pitcher goes off the board at 2, you're at 3. This offense is pretty anemic. If anyone's paid attention to the Rockies baseball, there's just not a lot of power. Ryan McMahon is an all-star, is a really good player.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers, guys but there's no one with 40 plus power potential on that roster. I don't even know if I'd say 30.
Right.
And so really excited. And he's a guy that should fly through the minor leagues. So 21-year-old, college junior. So, probably a year or two. So I wouldn't be shocked if, he has a good push next spring and then maybe comes up mid-year. So that's exciting. So not only the fact of it's hard with baseball, like you just don't see the guys for like a long time. And so being able to potentially see this guy soon is exciting. And,
for sure.
He could grow into like one of the best power hitters in baseball. I assume he's going to put on 10, 15 more pounds. It's a little bit like Adam Dunn. Remember Adam Dunn?
Yeah.
It's like, walk or home run or strikeout. But I think that he kind of projects much better as a hitter, as an all-around hitter.
Yeah. I was impressed by his power. I was impressed by his ability to get on base. It just seems like when he gets behind the plate, he knows what he's doing. He's confident in that, and he can go yard at any moment. And like you said, we haven't had a player like that for a good long while. I don't necessarily love the Chris Bryant comps just because of some trauma we've had with him here. But young Chris Bryant, I'm certainly open to him having that comp. And obviously, I don't anticipate that he'll be anything less than an effective hitter in the MLB. I think, it'll be interesting to see how these guys develop with the development staff there. That's kind of where the Rockies are living right now. It's just kind of in that development phase with these young guys. And so one more guy with a lot of upside that you can bring into the fold, like you said, probably sooner than later, seems like a positive thing for the Rockies. With the 38th pick, the Rockies picked a right-handed pitcher, Brody Brecht, out of Iowa. He was a wide receiver, but decided to commit to baseball, which seems to be, I guess remains to be seen. Yep. But he got drafted by an MLB team, so that's a pretty good start. What do you know about Brody Brecht?
Yeah, really, really nice slide piece. Lowered his walk rate, but still relatively high. Probably, I don't know if they'd use him as a reliever, but fastball's touched 101.
Okay.
So they went, and last year with Dollinger, they went more upside than safe. And I think at pitcher, to be honest, you get a whole bunch of different kinds, see what works. So a guy with a good fastball slider combo, I think usually with that, especially in the thin air, those two pitches will work. If you're able to develop a change, it'll be a pretty strong get. So I know Bleacher Report gave that one an A+, gave Condon an A+. So solid already. Yeah, so excited about it. And him being a good athlete, I think just goes to show probably his ability to continue to mature and develop, as opposed to maybe someone that's limited athletically.
Yeah, is this someone that you think the Rockies are projecting to be a starter, or do you think that he's more a relief type of role? I get the impression that maybe more starter than relief.
Yeah, I think if it were me, it would be starter until I see that they can't. Right. Being able to find quality starters, especially in Colorado, I think it's harder than not. So, they, from what I read too, potentially has like the best stuff in the class, which stuff meaning combo, fastball, slider. Yeah. And if that's the case, for sure, I think you max him out as a starter, and then maybe he's a back end late inning reliever if it doesn't work out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously Rockies need pitching, so you can find someone. And I saw that I think the reason that was rated so high was like a value pick, right? It was kind of
it was that he was like mandatory-ish picks, the balance that they use. So it was pick 38 overall. So so after the first round kind of wraps up, you get it's like compensatory picks essentially if you're using NFL verbiage. So a really valuable deal, especially if he can get his walks down there, about 14% now, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to try and get that under 10, especially if you're striking guys out at a really high clip. You can walk a few more if you're able to get punch outs. So sometimes it can be a exchange there. And then Jared Thomas, Cody Bellinger-esque defensive profile outfielder from Texas. What's really interesting is Texas's hitting coaches, Troy Tulowitzki.
Yeah.
So I just think that's kind of cool. Guy that really blossomed, hit like 4 home runs as a freshman, knocked out 16 last year as a sophomore. And so really nice hit tool, really valuable glove. So he has a high floor, I think, in being able to make it, if he's a guy that can play really good center field in a place that's probably the hardest to play center field, and he 10 to 15 home runs, but he's a guy that gets on base, can steal a couple bags, as he's been able to do. I think those guys are pretty valuable, especially if you got Condon up there smacking dongs. Then I think it was a good start. I didn't go through in totality kind of all of the draft class, but they did a good job. I think last year they had a pretty good draft. Drafting right now, that hasn't really been as big of an issue. It is the development of, and so you bring a guy with you bring those guys with all those skills, and there's no reason that any of them shouldn't make the major leagues and be an impact player. I mean, just the first 3. So, potentially you have your center fielder of the future. At minimum, maybe he's your 4th outfielder as the DH roles and all that kind of stuff, which is just as valuable. You have a guy that has ace potential stuff or dominant closer stuff, which both of those the Rockies could use. And then you have a guy that could be the face of your franchise. I mean, it's an elite prospect, a little bit different than some of the guys that they have drafted, like Taglia or so on and so forth, who were really good college players. But they got them late in the 20s when they were, a playoff team. So this is a guy who really should hopefully kind of change some of the trajectory. If you got a guy like that, a beacon like that, he makes everyone else around better because they're going to get better pitches. guys are, they'll nibble maybe a little bit, or they'll come at them because they can't afford to walk guys in front. So I'm excited for that. And it's so frustrating because I'm super excited about what they could be and what they could do. They have some really good pieces in the minor leagues. It's not as bare as I think some people think. Zach Veen is a guy that probably could steal like 60 bases in the major leagues, play phenomenal defense.
Yeah.
He's had some tough injuries, some weird stuff. So, if some of those guys are able to come up, and it's pretty easy to find position players. Herman Marquez just came back from his Tommy John.
Yep.
Antonio Sensatella should start pitching probably August or September. Kyle Freeland has pitched really, really well since coming back from the IL. There's 3 strong pitchers who aren't scared of Coors. Dollinger, who was in the Futures game, probably should be ready next year with really nice stuff. And then again, you look at Brecht, who touches 101 with a nasty slider. Let's go.
Yeah.
Then you can overpay guys to come in and be your bullpen. Rockies did it before. They can do it again. Guys aren't like bullpen guys pitching an inning.
Yeah.
If I got heat, I can pitch an inning anywhere.
For sure.
It's really like the wear and tear on starters that I think is hard to sell and hard to secure here. And then when you're not getting run support because your offense is quasi anemic, which is just crazy for the Rockies, right? It always was like, well, at least they'll score runs. Hasn't been the case for a while. And for this franchise to get back on track, offensively, they have to be a team that scares people a little bit. Like old school Rockies. We might lose 8-7, but we're going to smash the ball around.
Yeah.
And then you can start growing pitchers. And I know on day 2 of the draft, there were a lot of arms they got, which makes sense. Go get some elite guys that can play the field, mix in with some guys with elite stuff, and then pitcher.
Yeah. They had 20 selections, 13 were pitchers. So even if your top end, pick was not necessarily your pitcher of the future, you're going with some volume there and hoping that you hit on a few of those, even if that means they're just, relief or rotational guys, bullpen guys rather. Then there's value in that, and I don't mind that kind of approach. And like you said, it's easier to find a position player than it is to find a strong arm in the offseason and free agency. So I think it's one of those things that it seems like things are trending in the right direction, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. And
it will, and they just have to lean into it, right? And so taking a catcher third, the slot value over $1 million, took another third baseman from Clemson. All of these guys are college guys, which means ideally 2 to 3 years tops, and they're contributing to the major leagues. However, a ton of the pitchers, they really didn't go the amateur route, so they didn't go of high school kids. I don't think they drafted one actually, and so to me, like that's I would have probably got a high school arm or 2 in there, but maybe they, if you draft them too late, they can opt in to go into school. But some guys, really good programs too. LSU, Florida, Vandy, a few pitchers from there.
UCLA,
Arizona State, UCLA. Those are guys with good pedigree. Creighton has even turned into a pretty good school for baseball, basketball. So I like it. Plus, you have the international pool. So depending on how they spent their money in the draft, getting guys like they have in yesteryears to be able to come in internationally, Herman Marquez, Sensatella, et cetera. I think that can really help with the with the talent gap. I think their inability really to put some funds in there over the last couple of years, you saw that. And when they did, their prospect ranking went up significantly. So I like where they're at. Can they please put money in development? Like, you can't get raw clay, put it in the kiln, and then expect it to be a nice vase. Right.
Yeah, I think we've said all we can about the Rockies, but I think it's nice to have some hopefulness, some optimism around the team, even if it is a little ways out. It feels like the last few years have been a real grind. I haven't watched nearly as many games as I had in the past when we were competitive, and so I'm looking forward to hopefully a time where we can turn that corner, so to speak. And another team that needs to turn the corner is the Denver Broncos. we're going to jump into the signing extension of Quinn Meinerz. He got agreed to a 4-year, $80 million extension. Quinn is a guy that was drafted by the Denver Broncos out of Wisconsin Whitewater, I think is what it was called. Kind of flew up draft boards. We saw lots of draft video of him chopping trees and doing woodsman stuff, carrying barrels of water. And
it was phenomenal.
And so it was like when we drafted him, there's, of course you're optimistic, but you're like, okay, this is a little unorthodox. But he's been a picture of consistency on that offensive line for this team in the last few years. And it feels like a well-deserved extension. What's your feel overall? Is the number good? The duration? Any issue with any of that?
So just to maybe go back on some of the praise first, and then I'll tell you whether or not I like it. So his athletic profile, his RAS score was 9.99 or something really close.
Yeah.
Was really phenomenal. Last year, per PFF, was the best run blocking guard in the NFL, 3rd overall at that position. Pass block rate, 18th, had a 77 participants. That is an area he has to improve.
Sure.
But to be honest, the last 2 years blocking for Russ, especially one of those years being an absolute poop show with the offensive coaching staff. So him ascending, he's still only 25. He won't turn 26, I think, until November. So you're getting him at a good time. It being 4 years, smart by him. He's going to become a free agent again at 29. As offensive line, still have plenty. He currently now is the 3rd highest paid guard in football. So behind Quentin Nelson and Joe Thuney and ahead of Chris Lindstrom and Zach Martin. Zach Martin, I think, is a really good player still. He definitely is on the list for what he has done versus what he would do. I'd still take him here in a heartbeat. And Elton Jenkins, who is super phenomenal, versatile, finally got put at left guard and has been a Pro Bowl player. So, would I have rather gave that contract to Quinn Meinerz or something similar-ish that Robert Hunt got?
Yeah.
I'm gonna politely go to Quinn. I think that he's earned it. 1, I think 2, I think it says a lot. Sean Payton, this is the first extension he has signed off on since he became the Broncos coach. So then I think it reiterates that the coaching staff must really like him and see him as a part of their future. And I think it shows that Quinn feels like there's a good future here, right? So he could have played it out, could have tested, whether or not they're going to do the franchise, all that stuff, or at least could have vocalized it. Now I want to go somewhere else, or I want an opportunity to hit the market and make the Broncos call his bluff. Didn't, signed it. So, lowish cap number now. In 2 seasons, Russ will be totally off the books. They got $100 million to play with next year, and that's just in cap space, let alone cash over cap, all that good fun stuff, backload contracts. So I like it. Sean Payton values interior offensive linemen. If you look at the track record in New Orleans, he did that a lot. So I'm not shocked, and I'm excited for Quinn. I think, like you said, a guy that made something out of himself. He could have been a flash in the pan. He could have been like, that was a cool story. But he's worked to become an elite player in the NFL from a guy who he got drafted the COVID year, I believe, right? After. So 2021, he didn't play in 2020 because of COVID. So the last time he played football was 2019 before going to the Senior Bowl. So, there were a whole bunch of reasons why Quinn Meinerz should not have been an NFL player. Additionally, shouldn't have started in the NFL, shouldn't have been, Pro Bowl alternate, and then shouldn't have gotten, $20 million a year with a whole bunch guaranteed. So he's a top 5 guard. He should be paid like that. I like that they will pay their guy instead of going to find more. So what happens, Ben Powers, who was a phenomenal player with Baltimore, came here, struggled the first half of the season, and at least you know what you get. There's some consistency, and Quinn's shown that he can do it, and he's still ascending. I think we're going to blink. We'll be a couple years into that deal, begging that they re-up him before it goes up again.
Yeah. I know that it's not a position of like a keystone position, I guess you could say, like wide receiver, like quarterback. Some of your more
the premium
positions. Premium. Thank you. That's a good one. But is there something to them getting kind of ahead of this? I know you talk about free agency a lot of times with those skill position players, talking about setting the bar, kind of setting that new ceiling as far as contracts go. Did this feel like being ahead of the curve on that to you, or with this position group, do you think that that's less of a thing?
No, I think it's yes. You're signing him before the end of his deal to get a reduction. You're also doing it to get ahead of the market. It's always better to set the market than have the market set itself.
Right.
You saw what happened if you've watched Hard Knocks, what happened to the Giants when they let Saquon go to the market. He priced himself out. If they would have gave him a solid deal before going to the market, Saquon's probably still a Giant.
Yeah.
So I think, especially in the offensive line, I think even though guard is not a premium position per se, I think it is in today's NFL. If you can look at how Kansas City built their offensive line first, right? So they go get Creed Humphrey, sign Joe Thuney, draft Trey Smith. Those three are nails.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes at minimum, right? If you're going to get pressure, having it from the outside so I can see it, I can step up with confidence. Every quarterback, that's what you want.
Right.
If you're getting pressure up the middle, you're not able to run behind your biggest three guys. There's a problem. So I think that this is a tremendous move. I think putting money in the trenches. I've never seen a team be really bad when their offensive line is really good and their defensive line is really good.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere I'm looking at the highest paid list. So right now the Broncos are still only 15th because Quinn's money hasn't hit yet. This including backups, etc. So they're still on the lower end of the cost for offensive line. It'll kick up next year, but potentially you're moving on from Garrett Bowles and maybe drafting a left tackle, all that stuff. So there's some room to mess around with. Not that I'm advocating for that, but look at the really good teams. So for instance, Indianapolis, but if they had consistent quarterback play,
right,
several years as a playoff team, they are number 2. Number 1 now is Carolina because they recognized if you don't.
Right.
Kill your quarterback. Kansas City is 3rd on the highest paid list. The Rams are 4th. Atlanta is 5th. Their offense was pretty phenomenal with really terrible quarterback play. Detroit is 6. San Francisco is 7. Houston 8. Jacksonville 9. And now New York 10. As Cleveland 11. Philly 12. That's Cincinnati 13.
Yeah, pretty much all playoff teams.
Yeah, all playoff teams and all teams that I think are really good on offense and not just running the ball, but being adequate in both, regardless of who their quarterback is. So I think I like it. I'm glad that they did it, and I hope that this is a trend moving forward. Put money in the offensive line. Stop paying, receivers a whole bunch of money to be number 3s. And I think that this is course correcting itself. And this was a move that had to be. Plus the message to the locker room, right? I know we cut Justin Simmons, but that can make business sense for everyone. Gets it. Look what we did with Quinn Meinerz. You play well. Boom. We're not afraid to go to the top of the market.
Yeah, and if we're being honest, I don't know that you're anticipating any huge extensions moving forward. Outside of Pat. Who else are you going to pay right now?
I don't think Pat even probably gets done until next year because I think
right, exactly.
You're over him. You have the franchise tag to do for 2 years. That probably is still going to be under that number. So I think you can finagle that a little bit. He will get a contract though. I mean, I think
for sure.
We know that. So then it's really, the guys that could be up for extensions: Garrett Bowles, Alex Singleton. Tim Patrick is on a 1-year deal. Maybe he plays really well. They re-up in mid-season as the vet to come back, assuming that they'll kind of move on from court. But then really that's kind of it. On the offensive side, defensively, the question will be who do you keep, Baron Browning or Jonathan Cooper?
Right.
and maybe both of them give you a number where you can keep them both. But you have Nick Bonito, who's been a really good player. You drafted Jonah Ellis. I assume that they will continue to go back to the well. Thomas Nkum, who I like. Ronnie Perkins, who's did okay last year. So they're going to have a choice there. I assume they'll keep one, can't keep them both, draft again, all that kind of stuff. Outside of that, really, Riley Dixon, there's not a ton. And I think that's a really good place to be for a team that's in the midst of a rebuild. There's a lot of flexibility with where they can put money and where they can save it. So I'm excited about it. I think watching him be here, it's a guy that you want on your team, a guy that you want to send that message from, right? Like, he does what he's supposed to do. He leads how he's supposed to lead, and he balls out. And if you do that, you're going to get money.
Yeah. I'm happy with the signing. Obviously, I also believe in building through the trenches. So, if you're going to pour in money, I think just a young guy that has a lot of potential and has already shown a lot at that position. I have no issue paying him whatsoever, and I think it's the right approach. I think the Broncos entering a rebuild, quote unquote. I think it's fair to call it that now.
Yep.
I think that's where you want to start paying guys. I think you want to identify young talent that still has upside, and I think you're going to take some chances on that. And I think this is a great opportunity for Quinn, and I think that. I think overall, I didn't really see many comments of anyone that was upset with the trade, the deal.
I haven't heard much, if any, and that's the way we like it.
For sure. Let's talk. So this is not actual news. Potentially, you never know, I guess. But it's been something that's been floating around Broncos country, especially on social media. We spend most of our time on Twitter. But
the Twitters.
Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, has requested a trade. And this is something that's kind of caught fire with Broncos Twitter. People think that this is someone that the Broncos should go after. Obviously, he's a good player. He's a player that I think he feels like he was underutilized kind of in that offense last year and prior to last year. A guy that has some pass catching skill. I think you could line him up in lots of places. I would be interested to know what your opinion on bringing a guy like Brandon Ayuk here would be. Is it worth the trade value that you're going to have to give up? And is it someone that you would slot in here as a potential option? Presumably long term. I don't know that you want to trade for a guy that's not going to stick around for a while. So if you're going to trade for him, you better lock him up. What's your feeling on the Brandon Ayuk trade frenzy in Broncos country?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I send it to you. What's his dang it? Slowick, the writer for PFF.
Oh yeah.
Mike Benjamin. As well as dang it, who posted it or who said, maybe it was Rappaport. Someone connected the Broncos initially as one of the top teams to be able to make that move.
Right.
In the end, it depends, right? Because you're gonna have to pay him. I think if you can get him for your second round pick, which will be a high second round pick. Our assumption right now is that the Broncos are probably going to finish under 500. And so if they do, which is feasible, that second round pick is borderline first round. Trade Cortland Sutton, $17 million goes off the books, and you bring a guy in, you pay $30 million, so $13 million comes on the books, which you can structure it, delay stuff all you want, all those things, to be able to have a legit number one wide receiver, which this team hasn't had since DT. So, yeah, I mean, if that were the case, right, or something like that, I think that would be doable. You start talking about firsts or things like that, or multiple picks, to be honest with you, I think I'm out. For a team that's in the rebuild, you can find good players in the draft, second round, third round. Troy Franklin, a fourth rounder, who I think is going to be a pretty good player. So I wouldn't do that. The question maybe that I have, and feel free to volley this back. So say the Broncos do make a move. Say it also does cost them Cortland Sutton. Now you have Brandon Ayuk, who is probably like all of 6 foot. Pretty tenacious blocker, but I wouldn't say that, if I'm a adequate size corner that I'm not going to be I'm not feeling intimidated about coming up for the run.
Right.
You have Marvin Mims, who is a smaller player, and then Troy Franklin, who is tall, like 6'2", but why at like $175. So those three, similar-ish body types. They're all pretty fast. They're all deep threats. All got some moves, but they aren't guys that, are contested catch guys, not big. So you, in my opinion, you have to bring someone in. It's the basketball mentality. You want your wide receiver room to have a flavor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of a whole bunch of different things, different guys, so you can exploit matchups. That would be my one area. I also haven't watched a ton of Brandon Ayuk tape, so I don't know how he is in contested catch. Is he a guy that really does grade out, really positive around blocking? I've heard Brian Baldinger talk about him, and he's a dog in the run game, so I'll take Baldy's breakdown for that. So in the end, it's juice for a squeeze. The Broncos need playmakers, so this whole thing of like, you can't give up draft pick for a playmaker. I would give up a high second round pick for a proven number one receiver, right? He was the number one option receiving the ball on a team that had Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
So you're going to need one at some point. Why not do that where your quarterback is on the rookie scale?
Yeah, I agree. I have mixed feelings about it. I think if the price is right, I can. I think a single second round pick I would be okay with. Me, I love my draft pick, so it would still be difficult pill to swallow a little bit for me. But I think you're getting a proven commodity, and I'm okay with that. Given assuming his health is good, you're getting someone who's a wide receiver one. I've seen some that are floating out of a first round draft pick. That seems way too high for me, especially where the Broncos are likely going to be picking.
Right. And how far they are away from.
Yeah.
And because they haven't had their first round pick for the last 2 years. And,
right.
This was the previous year. So the first time they're drafted in the first round in a long time. Now you're going to give that one back out, right? Like, nope. Yep. Can't do that, guys. Can't do that.
Yeah, I saw something that said 2 second round picks, still too much for me. Those are valuable picks. Those are starters in the NFL more times than not, especially depending on the position you get. If you're going interior offensive line, early second round, you can get a really quality starter there.
Yeah, I mean, you get a 10-year starting center at the top of round 2, right? And
right.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces. So I think you're spot on
right there. If you're throwing in Cortland Sutton, I think that it gives you some flexibility. I don't think that the Broncos keep Sutton one way or another if they're getting Ayuk, so you're probably offloading him. Maybe in that same trade, maybe it's a 3-way trade with someone else. But that would allow you to give up less draft capital. And so something like that I would be on board for. I think, he was a 1,300-yard wide receiver last season.
Yeah,
we haven't had anyone close to that for a while. So to have someone with that sort of productivity would be nice, and obviously would be a great thing for Bo Nix. But the price has always got to be right. It's one of those things that
that's why the game's not called Price is Okay.
Right. Yeah, and the team where the team is at, I think I am now officially calling it the rebuilding years. There's nothing more valuable than draft capital in those years, right? There's nothing more valuable than darts that you can throw at the dartboard, as Peyton would like to say, George Peyton rather, would like to say. The more darts you have, the more you can throw at the dartboard, the more bullseyes you can hit. I believe in that. I think that that's something that the Broncos need to focus on, is getting as much draft capital and capitalizing on that as possible. So it would take the right deal. I do like it. I'm not willing to give up the house for him. And I don't know that a lot of teams would be. He's not really your prototypical wide receiver one. He's not your, I don't know, like he's not considered one of the top wide receivers in the league as far as I'm aware. He's not your Justin Jefferson, guys like that. that are your high profile guys. So I think that, if you can get him and he's healthy and it slots in and it's a good price, I'm for it. But I think Broncos country should pump the brakes a little bit. I think you've got a good wide receiver room as is. I don't know that this is the year that you start making big moves to bring in top end wide receiver talent.
So question really quick.
Okay? Yeah.
So if you were guaranteed to get a top 10 in the NFL receiver or Cortland Sutton, conditional, so a third round pick, conditional to a second round pick, barring playing time or injury, all that good stuff, and then maybe a day 3 pick in 2026. Would you take that?
Yeah, I think so.
Because PFF has Brandon Ayuk as their 8th best wide receiver. So I had a Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson. I mean, those are some damn good names. If I can guarantee that we have that guy in-house while you are developing your young quarterback for a day 2 pick and a future day 3 pick and a disgruntled receiver who, and plus Court needs to go win. That dude deserves an opportunity to go win. So I doing it just for him. So I would do it. Anything that gets me into losing a 1 or maybe even multiple day 2s, I'm out for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, wide receiver is one of those, it feels like you trade for a wide receiver when you're in a window. It seems like when you trade for a wide receiver 1 when you're in a window. Yeah. We're not in that window yet. We're hoping to get there. We're hoping that Bo Nix is the next guy. But there's a lot of question marks still out there. And so to go and make a move for a guy that you're going to have to end up paying a lot to be your wide receiver 1 when you have a lot of question marks on this roster, there is some inherent risk there, and I think that to overlook that would be short-sighted. The name is exciting, and obviously there's always going to be the tie between the Niners and the Broncos with the front office and coaching staff. Yeah. But I think you still have to pick and choose. You can't just commit to a name because it's a name and Broncos country gets excited about that. We're excited. We need some ammunition. We need some fodder to get us excited for the upcoming season. I don't know that this is it, but we'll see. We'll see what the Broncos do.
I think that's good. And just some names for next year, because I kind of looked them up. So next year in free agency. So say if Broncos don't make that deal, keep their draft picks, roll into next year, move on from Court, save about $15 million there. So our already pretty robust cap number goes up. I think you get really impactful potentially starters that might be in up there in age. So it's a 3-year deal. You got Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Marquise Brown. And those are kind of just the top of the list. CeeDee Lamb obviously has a potential to be on the market. I don't know who he is, but and then Brandon Ayuk, if there isn't a deal, will likely be on the market for no cost next year.
Right.
And so I think that there are some guys that you start getting into the second tier. There's some pretty good players in my opinion. So unless the deal, like you said, unless the deal is right, it's not hurting you too much. It doesn't, maybe it stings to give that up. We could get that. But jeopardizing your opportunity to really fill some holes. I think anything from 4th round to 1st round now, that 1st to 4th window, this team is drafting for starters and probably right now, right? Troy Franklin by the end of the year, in my opinion, should be a top 3 receiver on this team. And you kind of need him to be. I would even buffer to Audric Estime, 5th round pick, being a guy that's going to contribute today and potentially as the starter going into next season. You need a couple more draft classes like that to be able to peak. The one argument that I would say the importance of bringing Brandon Ayuk here now actually is the window. So 1, you're not paying your quarterback. 2, you need reliable players to break it in, right? A guy that I can throw a 6-yard slant to who has the capability to break it to the house. I don't have a lot of guys like that. Maybe Marvin Mims can do that. Maybe Troy Franklin can do that. I haven't seen them do that in the game. Cortland Sutton is not a guy that's going to, take a hitch to the house. That's not true. Court probably could. But that's not his game. That's not where you're having him there for. Him and Tim Patrick are big body guys who you can fit in tight windows and feel comfortable that they're going to make a play or help us keep, possession. So I think very strict parameters, like you said. I think we're both in agreement. If the deal is like pretty nice, and you can guarantee that in here, and you still have the flexibility through the draft and free agency to go make some more moves, which I think they can. So I think that they can do that. I'd be all for it.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. You never know. It's a crazy league. Things happen every day that you don't expect. So we'll keep our ear to the ground on that.
Random question.
Sure.
Same deal, same cost. Would you rather have Ayuk or would you rather have T. Higgins? We're both kind of in a similar spot, in the mix of a really good team, flush with offensive weapons, both ending their rookie contract, about to get paid in their second deal. Do you have a preference? If you're the Broncos.
The same deal, you said?
Same cost. It's 2 court, a conditional 2 court, and then a late day 3 pick in the next year. And you're going to go between 28 and 30 million. Yeah,
I would take Ayuk probably. I like T. Higgins a lot. T. Higgins hasn't been the most healthy of guys, and I know Ayuk has had his own injury issues. But T. Higgins also hasn't been the number 1 anywhere yet. He's had a really competent wide receiver 1 in Jamar Chase that just is a yearly Pro Bowler, an annual Pro Bowler. And so that really makes his job a lot easier on the other side of the ball, or on the other side of the field. Not to say that I don't think T. Higgins can't be a number 1. I think he has the potential, but he also is a little more like Court to me too. He's kind of a jump ball guy. He kind of is in that same.
He's a linear player, I'd call him. He's
right.
Big body, can do those, but he's not a guy that's running really nuanced route tree.
Right, exactly. And so I think it would be slightly redundant, maybe with a little more upside than a guy like Court.
Yeah.
But I think Ayuk brings a different. I think he's more of a possession receiver, a guy that with really great hands that understands how to run routes and understands how to get himself open.
Yeah.
I don't know if T. Higgins is quite as polished as Ayuk is at this point in his career.
And I don't think he's as explosive with the ball in his hands.
I would agree. I think even just from a vision standpoint, I think Ayuk uses the field well, sees where his blockers are, uses them effectively. I think Ayuk's a great athlete. I don't know if anyone considers him one of the greatest athletes at the wide receiver position, but he seems to find the end zone a good bit, and I think a lot of that is because of his vision, his ability to read coverages and find space, which we just haven't seen from a guy like T. Higgins. So I do think it's an interesting conversation, though, and I think as the year wears on and we see some of those guys trending towards free agency, they're certainly going to be. The Broncos will certainly, assuming that Bo Nix takes some steps in development and shows that he's going to be the quarterback of the future, they'll be talking about grabbing a wide receiver off the free agent market, and I think that's exciting, right?
Or early next year, right? That is a position that they need a 1. I don't think they have one on the roster, maybe, but I think they have some good potential number 2s. So having that alpha in the room. So just for perspective too. So the last 3 years. So remember, Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse with Kyle Shanahan. It ripped him publicly, and responded positively.
Yeah.
Point where he's getting some all pro votes. So 2021 played in all 17 games, started 16, started all 17 games in 2022, and then played in 16 games last year with 15 starts. So over the last 2 years, 75 or more catches, over 1,000 yards, 7 to 8 touchdowns per year. 2021, 56 catches, 826, 5 touchdowns. So even when he was building himself up to be a primary target, he's shown consistent progress and accepted really harsh public coaching to get better, which you don't always see. Ask Ashley Lilly.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, I think that is it for today. We hit almost all the teams. No abs this week, but you know, we're in the
Now stay sober, bro. Good God.
Yeah, and you know, we're talking Summer Olympics, not Winter Olympics. So when Winter Olympics roll around, we'll have some hockey to talk about. But you know, it's summer, and there's a little bit of a lull in the hockey game. But we got lots of basketball upcoming, lots of Nikola Jokic, lots of Jamal Murray upcoming. Yep. Team USA. We'll cover some of the Team USA stuff. You know, I think there's just a lot of good sports. I'm excited to have the Olympics in a year where baseball is non-existent for me, essentially. It'll be nice to have some athletes to root for and some teams to root for, and that have direct ties to Colorado. So,
and just remember, Broncos rookies, I think arrived today.
Oh yeah. This I think it is today.
Next week. So it's football season, baby.
Mm-hmm.
We made it together. We made it. So yeah, I share your pumped upness. So
pumped upness. Yeah, I got training camp tickets in just 2 weeks. Yeah. So I'll be out there on the 31st. I've got some family going out with me. Some family in town that's going to be there.
Nice.
So we're going to check out some of the roster and see some of these guys in action. Let's see Bo Nix throw the ball and kind of get eyes on from an on the field, quote unquote, perspective, which will be nice. You know, we've seen videos, we've seen college tape. Let's see what he's bringing in an orange and blue uniform. That'll be fun to see. So hopefully we see you guys out there.
And hope we see you all out there. And then you froze.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't know I froze. I didn't freeze on mine, but that's good. But yeah, thank you everyone. We appreciate you. We'll be here next week, same time. And if you need a sports prescription, make sure you ask a doctor.
I mean,
fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what? This is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.